The honourable member from Thornhill.
A hat trick for the Prime Minister, but not the good type. 3 reports released in just one day paint a devastating picture of life in Canada after 9 years of this NDP Liberal government. Food Banks Canada, the Salvation Army, and the Parliamentary Budget Officer all say there is more homelessness and there is more hunger. They kept telling us that they're spending our money for our own good, and everything is fine, and it's not their fault. Mr. Speaker, it's been 9 years. Right. Whose fault is it?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, grocery price inflation is coming down. 1.4% in April, down from 1.9% a month before. This is encouraging news, certainly for Canadians, but it's important to know that our government put forward the most comprehensive package of competition reforms in Canadian history. Why? Because more competition equals better prices. But it's a bit rich for the Conservatives to point to food bank lineups when they oppose a national school food program that's going to feed over 400,000 kids across Canada.
The honourable member from Thornhill.
And 9 years later, it hasn't fed a single child. They just don't get it. The very policies that they have delivered has given us the worst quality of life in half a century, the worst since the last Trudeau ran this place. In the past 3 months, 25% of young adults have had to go to a food bank in this country, 38% more homelessness after they promised to end it, and about 50% of Canadians are worse off this year than they were last year. How does this government have so much money to spare while ordinary Canadians are literally going hungry and homeless?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Quite the statement from the Deputy Leader of the Conservative Party. My advice to her is to actually read the report from the Parliamentary Budget Officer. In that report, she will see that no less than 50,000 Canadians are supported by the National Housing Strategy, specifically the Reaching Home program that they would cut. We know they champion an austerity agenda. This also from the Deputy Leader, who made clear only a few weeks ago on a yacht, no less, Mr. Speaker, that less homes have to be built in Canada. They're siding with the NIMBYs. We want to build more homes, including for the most vulnerable of this country, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member from Stormont Dundas, South Glengarry.
After 9 years of this NDP Liberal government, Canadians are hungry and homeless. It's becoming more clear. The more inflationary spending they do, the worse it gets for Canadians. And look no further than the Ottawa Food Bank report that came out this week that said 500,000 visits were made to the food bank in our nation's capital last year. That's a 95% increase in the last 5 years, a 22% increase in the last year alone, and 36% of them were children. How many more times are they going to hike the carbon tax before they realize it's driving millions of more people to food banks?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
I find it more than ironic that the Conservative member across the way mentions children when he's going to stand up in short order and oppose a national school food program. A national school food program that Food Banks of Canada and Food Secure Canada have advocated for over 10 years because they know that it will impact food insecurity in this country in a dramatic way. $1 billion in the federal budget 2024 to feed 400,000 more kids, and the Conservatives say, no, we won't support that.
Shameful.
The honourable member from Stormont Dundas, South Glengarry.
And after 9 years, Mr. Speaker, that program has fed exactly 0 children in this country. The only thing it's doing is feeding the bureaucracy here in Ottawa. Well, let's take a look and see what Food Banks Canada had to say about their poverty measures. Their report card came out this week, and this government got an F, a failing grade for what they're doing as they're driving millions of more people to food banks each and every year. Their report says it's only going to get worse the more they hike the carbon tax and make life more expensive. How many more damning reports need to come out before they axe the carbon tax to help with the price of food?
The Honourable Minister for Families and Children.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to share today some of the response from Budget 2024 and the announcement of the funding of the National School Food Program. Breakfast Clubs of Canada, Mr. Speaker, released a statement saying that this program marks a turning point in the country's commitment to the well-being of children. Children learn best on a full stomach, Mr. Speaker, and investments today in children are investments for tomorrow. On this side of the House, we will continue to invest in the well-being of children, and I think the Conservatives owe Canadians an explanation why they won't make these investments.